Hi everyone, it's Ash from FPLHINTS, here to review my predictions for Fabio Borges' Gameweek 1 team as promised. As always, if you're able to like, share and subscribe, that will be greatly appreciated. So what I'm also going to do is going to predict his move for Gameweek 2 as well. And I'm going to work my way backwards there. Rather than showing what my picks were, I'm going to go through my specific predictions first of all. So I made 12 specific predictions as to what he would do, and we're also going to look at his team as well. So first of all, with his own team, just a quick review. So Fabio Borges scored just above the average, 64 points in total. So a rank of 2.6 million. So you could say that's a fairly mediocre start, not the worst start in the world, but something that he can obviously build upon. In goal, he had Henderson, 2 points. Double Liverpool defence, got benefit from Alexander-Arnold, bonus points. Unfortunately for Quansah, effectively a -5 by being subbed off at half-time. Then got Pedro Porro, who, of course, scored against Leicester during Monday night. Could have been a 15-point haul had Spurs kept the clean sheet. I'm not mistaken, that's only 3 clean sheets they've kept in the last 30 games. Onto his midfield, Saka, 12-point haul there. Got Fernandes, Eza, and Kunku as well. So only one midfielder delivered for him. And then onto his 3-man attack, Chris Wood, Haaland, and Isak. So in this team, he decided to not go for Mohamed Salah, and he had no other attacking Liverpool cover despite their generous run of opening games. And then onto the bench, Valdemarson, Konsa, Winks, and Harwood Bellis. So with that said, let's go straight to the predictions first of all, the specific ones that I made. So number 1, I said he's going to have a 4.5 goalie as well as a 4.0 goalie. And as we can see there, he's got Valdemarson as his sub 1. And then further up, he's got Dean Henderson as his main goalkeeper. Now, specifically, what I said was that he's going to pick Flecken and Valdemarson. So I'll just bring that up here. So in terms of the actual specific prediction, 100% correct. In terms of the specific team pick, just 1 out of 2 there. So what I'm going to do is, just so that there's no confusion, I'll do the specific predictions first, and then I'll come on to the team picks. So coming on to the next prediction that I made for Fabio Borges' team, number 2, I said he's only going to have one midfielder that is 10 million or more. And then, as we can see on his midfield, Saka, there he is, 10 million or more. Fernandes, Eza, and Kunku are less than 10 million. And you've got Harry Winks on the bench. So with that specific prediction, got that absolutely spot on as well. Prediction number 3, I said he will have Mohamed Salah and Haaland. And this was one of the harder predictions to do because obviously he could have gone for no Haaland, could have gone for no Salah, could have gone for both, or he could have gone for neither of them. I kind of hedged it on the fact that you could have a balanced team with Mohamed Salah and Haaland. So the fact I said he would have both and he only had Haaland, I will not give myself any points there. So didn't get that right. So far, 2 out of 3 picks I've got absolutely spot on. Prediction number 4. I did say he will have at least one Portuguese player in his team. That seems to be a recurring trend. And as we can see, he had Bruno Fernandes in his team. This wasn't the pick that I had in mind. In fact, I actually hazarded a guess that he'd actually have 2 Portuguese players, but I did say he'll have at least one. So for that pick alone, I was absolutely spot on. So that's 3 out of 4 specific predictions spot on so far. Prediction number 5. I said that his reasonable sub 1 will allow him to start with a 3-5-2, but also adapt to a 3-4-3 for future game weeks. Now, as we've seen, he went for a 4.5 midfielder, so not a reasonable sub, as it were. Not someone he could really use, but more of an emergency cover, as it were. And he did have a 3-4-3 formation as opposed to starting with a 3-5-2, but I did say his formation would let him adapt to a 3-4-3. So I think I'll give myself half a mark there. That's 3.5 out of 5. Prediction number 6. I said he will have Isak in his team, and I was absolutely spot on there. the fact the engaged managers had him at 99.9% owned in some tables, it made absolutely sense for him to get him in as well. So that's 4.5 out of 6 specific predictions, absolutely spot on. Prediction number 7. I said he will have 2 or more Newcastle United players. Now, the second player that I had in mind was Anthony Gordon, and to my surprise, he didn't get him. And I also pushed and said he will also have a Newcastle defender. Again, that was a more of a trickier one, but I was absolutely convinced he'd have 2 Newcastle United defenders with a generous run of games in mind. But of course, he had Nkunku, he had Eze, had Fernandez in his team. He could have got Gordon in, absolutely. He could have doubled up with Newcastle there, but it seems like he wanted to spread the risk. And as you can see with his front 7, he literally had an attacker from each team. So I got that prediction wrong. So that's 4.5 out of 7 so far. And then prediction number 8, I said he will have 2 4.0 defenders. And he also had 2 4.0s at the start of the 23-24 season. Of course, he wouldn't have started them. So going to his bench, he's got Harwood Bellis, but the other defender is Konsa, who is 4.5. So yeah, I got that one wrong, but still 4.5 out of 8 so far. Prediction number 9, I specifically said he would have at least 2 defenders who are 5.0 or more. I was absolutely convinced on that. And as we can see, he managed to stretch out and get Alexander-Arnold and Pedro Porro in his team. And those were the 2 that he had. Of course, you got Konsa, and Harwood Bellis, who are less than that price tag. So I got that one absolutely spot on. That's 5.5 there. I've got right out of 9. Prediction number 10. I said I'll be shocked if he had even one Arsenal player in his team, and I got that wrong. He actually, I was convinced he wouldn't have an Arsenal defender. I probably should have made that my prediction. The Saka one, I was thinking somehow he could rejig it and perhaps get Mohamed Salah in, but hey, I got that one wrong. So 5.5 out of 10. Not looking good now. It was started off quite well. Prediction number 11. I did say he will find the extra 0.5 to get Eze in. And I also said if he can't, he would get Nkunku in. So as we can see, he's got Eze in his team right there. So that's 6.5 out of 11. Kind of hopefully get above the most right picks here, hopefully. Not going to say above average, but I hope I can get at least most of my picks here right. So that is 6.5 out of 11. And I also called out specific bonus players who I think that if he could get them in, he would. And those bonus players were Bruno, Solanke, Trent, Havertz, and Nkunku. So 3 of those players he actually has got in. As we can see, got Nkunku right there. He's got Trent there, and he's got Bruno Fernandes as well. So I thought that they were the alternates. I got most of them right. I'll give myself a mark there as well. So in total, from the specific predictions of an Elite 1000 manager, or in his case, the greatest FPL manager of all time, in terms of the kind of team I thought he'd set up, I got 7.5 out of 12 based on my specific predictions. Yeah, I would have, for that, I mean, the specific predictions, I could have been as general as possible, but fairly, I think an absolute minimum, 7.5 out of 12. I'll take it, but I probably could have done better there. Just the Henderson Valdemarson pick really threw me off. I thought I'd at least get Flecken in. He absolutely seems to love Flecken in as a budget goalkeeper, but clearly he's seen value in Henderson there. So now we are going to compare and contrast the actual specific picks. So I've already done the goalkeepers, Flecken and Valdemarson, so 1 out of 2 there. And of course, for those that watched last year's video, it was also 1 out of 2. Now, the defense was the strongest in terms of the picks last year. I got 4 out of 5 absolutely spot on. So this year, Pedro Porro was correct. Didn't have Byrne, didn't have Munoz, didn't have Johnson, didn't have Barco. So I got 1 out of 5 on the defense. Yeah, disappointed with that. But just the way I felt he could have used the funds in a more balanced way, I was not expecting to have Porro and Trent. I thought he'd have one or the other. Now, onto the midfield. I kind of feel this midfield is better than his own one, but I'll let you be the judge of that. So I said he would have Gordon, Mohamed Salah, Jota, Eze, and Carvalho. So clearly, I just got 1 right there as well. So a disappointing 1 out of 5. So I think that's what 3 out of 12 at the moment of specific picks. And I wasn't really confident. I mean, I know last year I got the vast majority of his actual picks spot on, but yeah, 3 out of 12, I'll take it. And then on to his actual front line. So last year I only got 1 right, but this year Haaland, Isak, absolutely spot on. And then João Pedro, of course, he didn't have João Pedro. He had the extra $500,000 to get Chris Wood. And it almost seems as if he almost had the extra $500,000 or extra budget to really spread his funds in defence and in other parts of his team. But in total, compared to last year, I got less of his pick spot on. So to conclude, that's 5 out of 15 I got specifically right of his actual picks. Very disappointing. I'll give myself a D plus there. And then in terms of my specific prediction, 7.5 out of 12. Yeah, I'll give myself a C plus there. I think that's fairly fair. So now on to what I'm going to predict. This will be my last prediction of Fabio Borges' team for this season. But based on how he's done and who he could potentially get, and also the status of his players, I'm going to predict his specific move for game week 2. And this is at the time of recording when there's only limited information. I'm not recording this after press conference information. So Henderson in goal, no doubt he'll still keep him. And of course, we've got the 5 transfers being rolled over, and Fabio Borges is famously known for being very conservative with his transfers. And I've got no doubt that if he had the chance, that rolling the transfer would definitely be an option for him. So let's just look at the status of his players as well. Sorry, let me just flick back to his screen. So yeah, Henderson in goal, he'll keep him. And then Alexander-Arnold, Pedro Porro yellow flagged, and Quansah. Now Pedro Porro played very well in that match against Leicester on Monday night, and could have potentially have got a monster haul there as well with the way he was positioned. But then towards the end, he seemed to have picked up a knock, really holding on to his left ankle, if I'm not mistaken. And it took Ange Postecoglou a long time to sub him off. Maybe he wanted Pedro Porro to just walk it off, but it seemed quite bad. And even when he was sitting on the subs bench, he kept on holding his ankle, and he's now yellow flagged in FPL. So he is somewhat of a doubt for Spurs. And I know there were a few matches where he missed last season as well due to injury. So that yellow flag is clearly going to be something which is a cause of concern for Fabio Borges as well. Onto his midfield, and Kunku's got the green block games, he won't touch him. Eza, the talisman for Palace, he won't touch him. Bruno Fernandes, disappointing in that first match. He really should have scored a goal. I think you'll still keep faith in him. And Saka, obviously, ever present with his returns, no issues there. Chris Wood, green block games. Haaland, Ipswich, clearly that will be his captain. And then Isak, disappointing for him. Again, unlucky that they had the red card in that match, and then down to 10 men, and the attacking potency had to obviously be held back. But yeah, he won't touch his front line. Now onto his bench, Harwood Bellis, X-Min, safety, sub 3, no issues there. Harry Winks, of course, is just going to be that sub 2 option. And then the clue really here is Quansah as a sub 1. And of course, with Aston Villa in particular, if I just bring up the fixtures as well, the next match for them is Leicester, then they've got Everton. So the green block games do begin for them prior to their Champions League run from September. So Quansah, clearly, prediction 1, Quansah will start for him. Now, the other player who is 4.5 with a similar name, Quansah, is potentially an X-Men's issue, but also Pedro Porro is yellow flagged. Now, we've not heard anything further. Is no news good news for Porro owners? Who knows? But basically, I was convinced that if he didn't have any injury or X-Men's issues with any of his players, he would almost certainly roll the free transfer. But because of this Porro yellow flag, Quansah X-Men's issue, I'm absolutely convinced he is going to do at least one free transfer in game week 2. So I think that one free transfer, hopefully before the price drop, I'm convinced he'll get rid of Jarrell Quansah because he's already got the Liverpool double up there in defence, and he'd want to potentially then unlock one of those Liverpool berths so that he could, I don't know, downsize. I say downsize, but switch out Fernandes for Jota if Jota's form continues to shine. And I think he probably realises he made a mistake in getting Fernandes in. Could have got Jota in, got the extra million, and then he could have beefed up that defence even more. Could have got Munoz in for Quansah, and then he could have perhaps even have got Fabio Carvalho for his sub one. In fact, let me just do a quick check on the potential points he would have scored with my team as well. So Fabio Borges, I believe, if I just quickly go back to his team, just bring it up. So he scored 64 points. Now with my hypothetical team, if he had chosen it, Flecken 4 points, there we go. We had Burn 5 points, Porro with the 9-pointer, Munoz, I think he got 4 points in the match against Brentford. Let me just get it up. 4 points there. So that's what? 5, 9, 14, 18 points from the back line. And let's just get this here. Yeah, 3 for Gordon, 21. Mohamed Salah would have been the captain. So that's 49 points. Got Jota. That's bumped him to 57. Azza, 59. Carvalho would have been on the bench. João Pedro, who I believe just got a 2-pointer. So that would put him to 61 points. He had Haaland, 68 points, and then Isak, 73. So he would have scored more points with my predicted team. So I'm pleased to see that there. And he would have had more balance and he would have had more options in the game weeks ahead. And he probably wouldn't have even had to have made a transfer. So yeah, sorry to confirm that, Fabio Borges. So coming back to his team, because of the situation he's in with this yellow flag and X-Men's issue, I think he's going to get rid of Quansah before the price drop, and he's going to bring in a like-for-like £4.5 million defender. And I think that £4.5 million defender will be Anthony Robinson, and Quansah, I think, will start potentially in this team because you've got Alexander Arnold, you've got Pedro Porro. But then, of course, you've got that generous fixture for Anthony Robinson as well, but he wants that other option. I'm convinced that if Pedro Porro is a doubt in particular, then he would probably have Pedro Porro as a sub one, starts Anthony Robinson and Quansah as well. That's Ezri Quansah. And then Quansah would be the sub out. So I think he'll make a late transfer, probably after the press conferences. Now, if somehow we get an assurance that Pedro Porro is fit for game week 2, then he may be a bit more relaxed with the transfer, and you'll simply flip out Quansah, put him sub one, and put Quansah out. So just to conclude there, I think he is going to make a transfer because of the X-Men's issue with Quansah and the yellow flag with Pedro Porro. But if later on Friday there is news that Porro's fine and he'll start, then he won't make a free transfer. I think the gut feeling is that Fabio Borges would not want to make that transfer, but if he's forced into it, with Pedro Porro definitely being ruled out, then Anthony Robinson will come in for Quansah. And if it's a long-term injury for Porro, it didn't look too bad. Well, he was hobbling, of course, seemed like a knock, that he can just sub him for one match. So that is the question mark right now. It's fairly hard to predict what he is going to do, but inevitably it will be between rolling the free transfer. But then if there is potential risk of Quansah having that price drop and dropping to 4.4, then he might act early, get Robinson in, and then have Pedro Porro as the sub one, perhaps for a game week. But the captain for him, clearly Haaland will be the captain without a shadow of a doubt against Ipswich. So there you have it. Those are my predictions for Fabio Borges for game week 2, as well as my review of predictions from game week 1, which included my team picks predictions for him, where I didn't do as well as I thought, but the specific predictions, I more or less got most of them correct. Question is, am I going to make another prediction video next season? I'll see. It really depends on how Fabio Borges does this season, because he's had 2 mediocre back-to-back overall seasons for himself. So I really hope that he can really push back up, because I think he'll even potentially fall out of the top 10 if he can't maintain a high overall rank. But I think I've had a fun ride predicting his team for the past 3 seasons, where I made an absolutely specific prediction in 2022, picked his entire team in 2023 and got most of that right. And then this year, let's be honest, it was a mixed bag, but it's been fun. And the reason why I do it, and it's something I was asked as well on social media, what's the point of it? It's that to be an elite FPL manager, you need to understand that mindset. You've got to look at the patterns and trends of their own picks. And clearly there is almost like a blueprint in the way in which these elite FPL managers play. I've got a profile of Fabio Borges that I'll put in the description below as well if you're interested. And if you want to see how I did with the previous predictions, I'll put them in the description below as well. But look, I said that regardless of my predictions being absolutely spot on, if I was absolutely way off the mark, I was going to do this review video, and that's exactly why I've done this. And then I've given you that extra bonus of doing what is a prediction for game week 2. And like I said, that with that prediction, Robinson for Quansah is the only real transfer he'll potentially make. But then if there's long-term injury for Porro, he'll probably switch him out. But then if Porro's injury isn't that bad, he might roll the free transfer. So it's quite in flux right now. I mean, had I recorded this on Friday night, then probably I would have had an even better idea with the press conference news on what he would do. But because I'm recording this days before that, it's guesswork, as it were. And to be honest, it all is guesswork with the predictions ahead of game week 1, as well as the predictions ahead of game week 2. So this is not going to be a Fabio Borges prediction series, last famous words, but it is good to see how he has done. And it's just good to understand the mindset of an Elite 1000 manager. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think that my predicted team was better? Well, points-wise, it was better. But is his actual team better than the predicted team? Do you think that he's actually absolutely nailed it and these are really good long-term picks? Or ultimately, do you feel that he could have done something different? As always, if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that will be greatly appreciated. Take care and all the best.